If you've been watching regularly over the past couple of weeks, you know we're looking live at Toronto City Hall right now. And we also know there's been plenty of frustration and head scratching over the city's shelter situation. Shelter beds unlocked in an instant this week, despite the system apparently running at capacity. It has many wondering just how the system operates and why it operates like this. Joining us now is Jennifer Keesmaat, founder of the Keesmaat Group, and of course the former Toronto City planner and mayoral candidate. Jennifer, good to talk to you this morning about this, because a lot of people watched what's unfolded just around the corner from us here at Peter and Richmond. You know, dozens of people, sleeping out on the streets, no place to stay. Apparently the money's run out. Then they get bused to churches, etc. And this all happens in a period of transition in the city as Olivia Chow is getting sworn in as mayor. The city suddenly kind of gets seized with this issue. What is it like behind the scenes when an issue like this pops up and the sort of effort involved to sort of find a solution?
Well, there's a few different scenarios. There are some issues that happen as a result of something that the city does, a decision that the city makes. This is something that is an outcome as a result of a decision that the federal government had made, and there was no plan in place. And so there's been a tremendous amount of scrambling behind the scenes, coming up with solutions. The city has had to act very quickly in the past, so it's not that there isn't the institutional memory for how to act very quickly in this type of a situation. But this is really exceptional. This happened very, very fast. It was shocking to everyone imaginable to see what you're showing on the screen right now. And really what's pretty remarkable is that the solution emerged very quickly as well. That does not typically happen. That is something that is very new for the city. There was some talk about Mayor Chow being a bit of an activist mayor, and very clearly, she has a reputation as someone who just digs in and gets things done, and she raised this issue really immediately, went straight to the federal government, got the money that was needed, and now is moving people off the streets into shelter. And this is being done by extending a lease on a hotel.
So I was going to say, suddenly we see $97 million coming from the feds, both Toronto and the province ponying up about $6.5 million toward a shelter to homes situation here. But I wonder, some people look at this, Jennifer, and they say, well, if suddenly there was 150 shelter beds available and maybe 100 more, why wasn't it addressed sooner? Could you talk about that sort of what happens in that sort of gray period between the issue rising and action being taken?
Well, sure. I think that's very strange. The thing that's very strange here is that we can, when there's a problem, we can create solutions and address them, but it also means that we can be preventative. It means that if the city was aware of the magnitude of refugees that were coming into the city, that the city could have put a plan in place. And look, the federal government obviously had the money lying around and could have allocated that money in advance of this problem emerging. So I think, the only way to describe it is that behind the scenes, there are a lot of very hardworking bureaucrats alongside the politicians. And of course, we saw that council was united on addressing this issue and acting very quickly on this issue. I think, it's as you imagine. If this was a crisis and people were responding as it was a crisis and acting incredibly quickly and in a way that is scrambled. The unfortunate thing is that this doesn't need to happen. That there needs to be a much better level of coordination between the federal government and our cities across the country, which are receptacles for people who are coming from away.
Yeah, I mean, you've got people new to Canada, in some cases pregnant women, effectively sleeping on a sidewalk in the rain and brutal heat. I mean, brutal conditions here. And what also I think surprises a lot of people too is just the finger pointing. It reminds me of that sort of meme that I'm sure you've seen on the internet where it's like the three different Spider-Mans, each pointing at each other. That never helps when governments just keep sort of passing the blame around.
Well, that absolutely never helps. And I think one of the interesting dynamics that we're seeing here right now is that there actually wasn't too much of that. There was a cry for help. There was a very quick collaboration to top up the rental benefit supplement, to get people who are in the shelters into housing, to free up space in the shelter system. That was a collaboration between Premier Doug Ford and Mayor Olivia Chow. There was a very quick series of conversations that took place with the federal government. Everyone immediately identified that this was a crisis. In some ways, it's really because this is so visible. It's really hard for anyone to deny that this was happening in the city. And on the other side of it, speaking to the pregnant woman sleeping on the street, come on now. This is not Canada. This is not our country. The shame, the nonsense what was happening was so acute that I think there really wasn't any kind of tolerance for the kind of finger pointing that typically takes place.
Absolutely. Okay, Jennifer Keesmaat, really appreciate the time with us this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.